feeling that is hard to face. Do we need a second chance? Do we need a second wave? You never stop running, it's a battle in neon lights. And the further we're heading, there is always another fight. Is it something that we need to stay brighter? Is it something that we really need? In this fight, there will only be losers. And this city is too hot for me. Every day will get a little bit brighter. We'll be talking about liberty. And I will fight to the end, 'cause I'm needed. Still this city is too hot for me, so I'm going underground. Going underground.
Welcome to the Prepping Patriots podcast. Happy Thursday, everybody! It's Thursday. It's a little bit of an off day. We don't typically live stream on Thursdays. But you
No,
know
we
what?
don't. I kind of like it though.
Yeah, I kind of do too. Like the whole, like Wednesday, you got stuff going on. Friday is kind of family night and all that. So Thursday is just one of those days we might just stop. We might just start doing it then. So in any case, what's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome. If I mean, we're gonna just jump right into it tonight because it's just been one of those weeks. If you looked at the title of the live stream, we titled it a near miss. Like, we're getting real tonight, because a couple days ago, we came a couple days away from technological
Just a little bit more of a rotation.
Yeah, just a little bit more of a rotation, and that would have been it. That would have been the one. All of the stuff that we have been blabbering about for what feels like months and months and months and years and years and years, we would have been proven right. And what I mean by that is, I don't know, a couple days ago, was it Monday? I can't remember what day exactly it was. I believe it was the
Monday.
13th. The 13th, SOHO radars, space weather radars, detected a massive super flare come off the sun, like massive Carrington level event super flare come off the sun. And that was it. And luckily it was not Earth facing, but it was massive. And kind of brought a whole ton of perspective when I heard about that. When I heard about it, I'm like, oh, I need to go research this and watch, see what I can find out about this thing. And then the info that I got, it really brought perspective to me. Like, wow, we came so close this time. We got super lucky. And it made me just reflect back on my preps and what I'm doing, and kind of like, okay, we're not even at sunspot maximum yet. Like, we're not even at this solar cycle maximum yet. And we're already getting super flares. So this stream, this podcast is not meant to be a fear-driven podcast. It's not meant to instill fear in anybody. It's meant to inform, and it's meant to raise kind of awareness on this. So I want to stick to this kind of topic tonight. And if anybody who's watching have questions, just type in the chat, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, we'll get the questions, and then we can kind of address them there if you're live and have questions. Oh, here we go with that thing again. That's fine.
It's got to be some kind of loop.
It's got to be, but nothing's like my Stream Deck. It's all gone. So I'll mute that. It's cool. So in any case, I want to start out with, I am not a scientist. I work in the tech sector, but I didn't go to school to study astrophysics or space weather or anything like that. So I want to start out with, like a minute or two of the YouTube video that Suspicious Observers puts out. He is a scientist. He does study space weather, and he knows what the crap he's talking about. So
and he does this every single day. So when we are talking about preps and we're talking about all these different areas of focus and all that kind of stuff, he's living and breathing this every single day. I think he goes on at like 5 a.m., records his YouTube session daily. Here's where the sun is today. Here's what it's done. Here's how, the global weather is not doing what the media tells you it's doing. It's like they live and breathe space weather news daily. So climate change, the sun, all that kind of stuff. He's probably the most, what's the words I'm looking for? Fully absorbed into that situation as possible, more than any of us could be. So he's who we reflect to every time we need to reference any of this material. So while JT's getting something fixed. Oh, you got it fixed. Okay.
I'm trying to get something fixed.
No worries.
I'm doing this.
So one more thing. So JT was talking about how it made us start to think about our preps. We do prepping. Okay. We've been doing prepping for a while, and we still don't feel like we're prepped. Okay. When the preppers don't feel prepped, that should tell you something. Okay. So you can have food, you can have water, you can have all those things, but a solar flare that could come and wipe out all technology, I don't think anybody can truly be fully prepared for that unless you have a buttload of money and you could just spend all the money to get the resources and the time that you need to get it done. But there's always going to be something on our list that we want to get done, whether it's getting electrical fixed for like say we lose all electricity, but you have a well, how are you going to get that water out of the ground or something like that? So when I saw the event myself, I could tell you the first thing I looked at was like, crap, how's all my preps doing? How's my food? How's my water? I just started going down the list. And now I've been super busy these last 3 days, so I haven't focused on it as much as I should be because I need to start focusing on it. But I'm sure this weekend it's going to be coming. I'm going to be finally catching up on all the news I missed. So I will be heavily relying on JT tonight to give us all the deets, and I'll be asking a bunch of questions. So
I want to start out with just showing just a minute or so of Ben Davison over at Suspicious Observers does a daily like space weather, kind of like, you wake up in the morning and see what the weather is from the weatherman. He does space weather. So he's the guy that is super on. He knows his stuff. I do want to play a little bit of this just to kind of give context of, don't just take it from me that when I say this was a planet killer or this was a technological killer, that, a guy who lives and breathes, and he's a certified astrophysicist. He's got all the doctorate degrees and all that. So I want to play this real quick for everybody just so they get a sense of what's going on. So here we go.
Good morning, folks. We have several fascinating topics to hit today. Earth just got very lucky, again. The weird thing making homes explode, science on cold events, and what we can expect in the future. And we are starting with our star. After the northern filament eruption yesterday morning, the sun has been relatively quiet. Solar flaring remains at low levels. Solar wind is slightly enhanced due to a coronal hole stream, but not to scary levels, and geomagnetic conditions are equally moderate. But something in the data streams caught our eye, and the eyes of NASA solar science specialists, and upon closer review, we are all very lucky to be online and having electricity at the moment. The story begins with the GOES proton flux, which we showed yesterday hitting storm levels due to a far side CME, one that affected the Earth despite not being directly aimed at us. Yesterday, we had said it would wane away, but that didn't happen, and that's an indication that something tremendous did happen. The CME that left the sun 2 days ago, going exactly away from the Earth, and which produced a full halo CME on SOHO coronagraphs, has been clocked at over 3,000 kilometers per second. That is a Carrington-level event, super flare power. If that had been aimed at us, we would already be suffering powerful geomagnetic storms and possibly a grid-down scenario. We'll never know the flare rating of the far side event because our satellites can't see the opposite side of the sun, but suffice to say, a deep breath or prayer of thanks is warranted at this time. Hopefully it quiets down as the sunspots turn in to face Earth in the coming days, but right now we're heading to the crust where we had a...
Okay, so there's that.
Yeah.
That's
Well, let's
the
talk about a
first-
little bit of those items. So there's a lot of words there. There's a lot of jargon. We don't understand. There's a lot of words that you probably don't understand. That's okay. I think it's easy to understand the basics. That's what's nice about visualizations. That's nice about what he's talking about. So a CME, or coronal mass ejection, is the expulsion of magma material from the sun. Okay, it's that big burst of energy. So that's what causes the solar flare, but it's that following filaments that come with it that cause you to have your blackouts or technology failures that take place at that time. So just a little bit of some definition there for people that don't know what that is.
Yeah. So I watch that because I watch his morning show every day, or every morning when I wake up. So I watched that and I'm like, oh my gosh. So one of the first things I did was go to spaceweather.com, because it's where you can go to get like more information. You can read about more things. So I went to, spaceweather.com, and you can see it here that this was back on March 13th. And it basically just reads like, something big happened on the far side of the sun during the early hours of March 13th. SOHO chronographs recorded a far side halo CME, apparently leaving the sun faster than 3,000 kilometers per second. Now, from what I understand, that is really, really fast. Fast. Like, it makes it to Earth in 12 hours, whereas normal CMEs take at least a day or two to get here. Yeah, it's like 2 days to get here. So there's plenty of warning, and I'm going to get into the warning thing. We'll get into that later because I'm not going to go there yet. So in any case, this is an extremely fast. So particles are moving super fast, which would overwhelm us as far as the Earth's magnetic field pretty quickly. My wife did ask me this. She's like, well, does it affect humans? Like, no, this doesn't affect humans. This isn't one of those from a unless you have like pacemakers and stuff like that inside your chest. But normally, if we got hit with this, the average person isn't going to drop dead because of solar radiation or anything like that.
True. Yep. From that aspect, yes. I was saying from the aspect of electromagnetic waves does have an effect on our bodies. It's not really something that's been defined yet, but it's kind of like the same thing. If your phones or your networks are around you, you're constantly being bombarded with electromagnetic frequencies, or EMF. That's a whole interesting topic to get into that if you guys have some time. But I'm actually starting to get into that more and more now, especially as we're talking about the sun and bursts of energy and solar flares and all that kind of stuff. Look up electromagnetic frequencies and how technology in general is constantly sending off signals that are constantly causing issues. And I'll just leave it at that, but I'll let you continue on. But anyways, I just wanted to bring that up, that it could have an effect on us, whether it's your mental state, it causes more anxiety, causes more it's not just emotional, but there's emotional and physical piece, but it's not something like a nuclear bomb where it's radiation and you're gonna die of poisoning or something like that.
But this thing was so massive. This happened almost on the direct opposite side of the sun, completely opposite facing Earth, but it was so massive that it had effects on Earth. We didn't feel them, we didn't see them, we didn't experience them, but they were detectable, measurable effects from the opposite side of the sun. That's how big this freaking thing, this thing was. So if you go over to the Space Weather Watch Twitter page, this is just the same graph you saw in the video on a loop. This just shows, here's Earth over here. Here's where it happened. When you see that white stuff, that's the most intense, because it's color based. So when you see white, it's oh, that is really intense. That's really big. So that was Earth facing. That would have sucked really, really bad. So this is just another, if you're one of those individuals that needs multiple sources of truth in order for you to buy into something, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm giving you guys multiple sources of truth, not just from some YouTube guy that streams out space weather, but Space Weather NASA.com, NASA sites. This is the Twitter page. This is this next screen. This is from NOAA. This gets into kind of away from what the event that just happened, but we are in right now. The sun goes through 11-year solar cycles, solar minimums and solar maximums. We started going, the solar maximum started back in like April or June of 2020, and it's predicted to peak. The solar maximum is predicted to peak in May of 2025. The graph you see here, the red line is the predicted values, and this is number of sunspots on the sun. Sunspots are basically the oven that cooks up solar flares and CMEs. If I could just put it in those terms. So when you have a lot of sunspots, that's just an increased chance of solar activity. So I
always view it as like a boiling pot, like a cauldron,
Yeah.
as it's bubbling.
It's like the cauldron as it's bubbling. But
Yeah.
the red line here is basically the predicted values, what this whole solar cycle is predicted as far as sunspot numbers. The gray is the predicted range of that. So kind of like the margin of error for the prediction. You can see we are starting to even come outside of the range with the number of sunspots that are developing, with the peak right now being in January 2023. And I want to preface this by saying you don't need like a ton of sunspots to produce a super flare like we just experienced on the sun. If you go back in time to 1859, I'm just going to 1859, 48, 54, 60, and bring this. Okay, so 1859, which is when the Carrington event was. So 1858, 1859, that was in what, September of 1859?
September 1st
So
and 2nd.
September of 1859, if you look at the actual sunspot number, it was higher, but it wasn't the highest it's ever been. So you don't need like a ton of sunspots in order to produce a super flare. The whole point of this graph is just to show that based on the predicted values in the range, we're starting to get well above the predicted values in the predicted range, and we're not even at solar maximum yet. So we had a super flare just go off, and we're not even at maximum yet. So this idea that we have about, hey, we prepare for what we call the solar kill shot, this just confirms, at least for me, this confirmed like, okay, we're doing the right thing and we're preparing for this thing. If it doesn't happen, great. We'll see it in 11 years and we'll try this again. But if it does happen this sunspot cycle, which a lot of people that are observers they believe that this is going to happen this sunspot cycle.
And when we say observers, I mean, you've got full people from NASA, you've got people from SpaceX, you've got people from all over that just study this stuff on a daily basis. And they're all considered observers. They all work together with Ben and the suspicious observers, where they're constantly talking about this information in their back channels to give us the most information possible. So it's not just a person like JT was saying. He's trying to show you all these sources that are continually communicating that information. But yeah, I'm just crazy. And you said just this solar flare, but to reiterate something from our previous podcast, this isn't the only one within the last few weeks. We've had several over the last few weeks that have been X class. Okay. And X class means the largest possible solar flare. So with that going off, and we're seeing it ramp up more and more and more, that's more concern that should be out there for the fact that if something goes off with a solar flare or coronal mass ejection, it has more potential or opportunities of causing all technology to be wiped out, which in a technological era that we're in today, everything we do is around technology. You've got your social media, you've got your finances, you've got your how you order your supplies. People use Amazon for buying most of their stuff on a daily basis. I mean, just look at your day-to-day activities. All of our cars have technology in them. So
yeah,
you really have to look at what all is affected in my life with technology. Getting into your house, people have security systems with deadbolts and stuff like that. I mean, you can really go down the rabbit hole.
I literally thought about that today after I dropped my daughter off. Today I pulled in the driveway. I'm like, I have a remote on my garage for my garage. all my locks are electronic locks, right? And I don't keep the key on me. Just like I'm going to start keeping the key on me, but like, and we lock our house obviously, and it locks automatically when we leave. So it's like, if I'm gone and this stuff happens, like I'm breaking a window to get into my own house, you know?
Yep.
So
Key fob to get in your car, chips or motherboards to start your car or turn on your air conditioning, because it's all digital displays now.
Yeah. And then, so the next time we talk, we'll talk about this again, but I did wanted to do an experiment because I do electronics. That's like one of my hobbies. I've been doing it for years, right? I want to hook up, because people say, well, some things will, because it depends on where you read, right? Like if you read on NASA's site or NOAA's site, you know, it doesn't give you the doom and gloom, like, oh, if this were to hit us, this would have been they just say, you know, the likelihood of, how did they word it? They word it like the likelihood of grid impact or something like that. They don't say it'll end all technology. They kind of soften the blow, right?
They fluffed it, a lot.
They fluffed it a lot, but I want to take on a breadboard, I want to take a transistor, and I'm going to look up all the ratings of mostly transistors are measured in millivolts, really small voltage. And I want to hook that up to my power station. And I want to put like a couple volts into this transistor and show people how this transistor will literally fry if you put more voltage in it than it's rated for, which will demonstrate like anything that has a transistor will fry during this, because a big solar flare that hits us, like there's a lot of like electrons and a lot of particles that are getting into things that cause that produce voltage. And if you over voltage something that is not meant to be over voltaged, it will fry. Cell phones, cars, anything with a chip goes away. They had reports of during the Carrington event that like wires were catching on fire, like, and all this other stuff. And the next point I wanted to make because of this, and people who are watching may be thinking, well, JT, you know, I was watching Fox News and I didn't hear anything about this. Well, you know, so you must be a conspiracy theorist. You will not hear about this on Fox News, CNN, CNBC, all of the acronym news media outlets. You won't hear about this. And you want to know why? It's because you look at, and this is just, now we're getting into, this is my opinion. So we just had, and everybody should know this, like we had a couple failed banks that happened, you know, right? So, and that caused a little bit of rumble in the markets. Government did some bailouts and all that. Can you imagine what would happen if somebody were to come on the airwaves and be like, we just missed a technologically killing event, but you know, because of the sun? Like people would be like, they would start paying attention to the sun more, and then they'd start preparing more, and they would do things like pull their money out of their banks, and because they want to have cash on hand, and they don't want to instill fear in anybody, so they just leave it out altogether. And even when we had, you know, what was it, a month or so ago, we had an X10 hit us, you know, where an X10, you know, it was like, well, the makeup and the speed and all of the metrics off of that X10 were like, this could cause some interruptions in services. And by services, I mean like grid services. It wasn't like the technological killer, but you didn't hear about any of that on news outlets. They didn't come on and say, hey, you may experience some power flickering because we're about to get hit with a solar flare. Like you didn't hear about any of that on any news outlet. So you won't hear about this. If it does happen, I'm not convinced that the government, if this super flare would actually have been pointed, like shot towards Earth, by the time, you know, Ben puts out his videos and we hear about it, we probably got about 6-ish hours to like prepare, which we can prepare. But I don't think the news media would be blasting this on radio. I don't think we'd hear an emergency broadcast about this stuff happening at all. And then we would all just be like caught with our pants down and nobody knows what's going on. And like, so.
Yeah, they're not going to incite panic. I mean, they do that with their media, giving their own news stories and trying to make people think a certain way or feel a certain way. But there's never any kind of discussion that's going to cause panic, mass panic across the nation, where people are going to start looting and causing destruction because they know it's like the end of days. I brought it up in a previous podcast, but it's the Don't Look Up movie is a great example of that. So,
great example. Oh gosh.
So we try to bring up past podcasts just in case you haven't heard of any, if you're just now listening, if you're brand new. we have some really good content in our past podcasts. So something to keep a lookout for or listen for. But the movie Don't Look Up is a great example about how scientists came to the government and said, hey, we've got this asteroid that's coming towards Earth, and you should tell everybody ahead of time. And they're like, oh, no, we'll be fine. And they don't bring it up. And so it's not until the last few weeks that things are brought up. And this is a really great example of that. They're not going to say anything a few hours before chaos ensues, because it's more of people try to save their own butts during that time frame. It's just like the financial market or whatever, SVB. You saw all the transactions that were taking place, the bonuses that were paid out, the stocks that were sold. It's the exact same scenario. Everybody's going to try to save themselves. They're not going to say it where the police and firefighters and all that kind of stuff, they have families too. They're going to go back to their own families and try to get their own families out of there. So
they're going to want to make sure that they get the core government on planes and in bunkers and all that before they're going to release that to the public. But with something like an X-Class that only takes hours to get here, by the time they get all those people rounded up and in bunkers and safe and all that, and then announce it, it's like, well, it's too late. So, I was thinking about we get our news and stuff as far as space weather stuff, mainly from Ben, and I got some apps that alert and all that stuff. But I'm even thinking okay, if this were to happen, because this is the thoughts that go through my head. We talk, we eat, we sleep, we breathe this stuff. But then when an event like this actually happens, you really start to think, how prepared am I? And I don't think you're ever going to get to the point where you're like, yep, I'm prepared. I'm ready to go. Don't need anything else. You're always going to be like, I need this, I need this, I need this. But I was even thinking so if we have a 6-hour notice, let's just say we had a 6-hour notice, would, disconnecting, my breaker, my main breaker from the grid and unplugging everything potentially save some devices in my house to where I can put them on a solar system, or, batteries that, could survive.
Hopefully
this
still
thing
work.
and hopefully still work. I'm thinking, okay, I have a deep well. That well's probably 500 feet into the ground. If I disconnect my main panel and unplug my deep well, because it's so far in the ground, if induction doesn't go that far down, maybe the well pump will survive, and then I can plug that into, an inverter that I have in a Faraday cage or something, and at least pump out well water. Because unless you guys know, and if you guys do know, please let me know. I have not been able to find a hand pump for a deep well. I can find hand pumps for a shallow well all day long. I cannot find a manual pump for a deep well anywhere. I don't even know if they make them. So
I want to say the only scenario that I have seen in the past is where they used a windmill and the wind blowing across it to pump things out of their well, pump the water out of their well.
I don't have a windmill.
I know, not yet. It's okay. We'll figure it out.
I'm going to build a windmill in the middle of that yard.
No, it's just like a radio tower, not a radio tower, the electrical tower. It's just that going up, and then you got a windmill at the top with a metal pole coming down from it. But
hey,
anyways.
Bobby, if you're still listening, can you come over and we can build a windmill together? Because I have no idea how to build a windmill. Bobby is my brother-in-law. He's a builder, and so I would need him to help me build a windmill.
I'm gonna send you the windmill water pump project. That's the only one that I'm aware of. I've seen one that's like a hydroelectric, but again, to the point of if technology is wiped out, there are certain things that you can do to, like you're saying, unplug things, turn off your breakers, that kind of stuff. You're going to have more potential of wires getting fried and that kind of stuff the longer the connectivity. So by unplugging things, so if there is a solar flare or coronal mass ejection coming towards us, that kind of stuff, that's where you would want to unplug everything from the walls, turn off your breakers, turn off things. You want to try to reduce as many long cables, long wires as possible, with the potential of it being saved, if it's not too big of a CME.
Well, even if it's not with the goal of saving your appliances, just because none of us have ever gone through this. Like, we as a society have never gone through a Carrington level event. Okay, we can just go on the past. In the past, there were reports of telegraph wires literally catching on fire, and I'm sure those were thicker gauge copper wires catching on fire because they're super long. So, and our houses are big enough to where they produce their own. They produce kind of their own, electromagnetic field when they're all energized up. It's small and minute, but it still produces. So by disconnecting from the main grid, and shortening that length from the grid, you're it's less likely, I'm not saying it's foolproof, but you're less likely for your house to catch on fire, probably. I don't know, because none of us has ever been through it. I'm just theorizing here that it makes sense just to unplug everything. So if something big does end up shooting off towards us and we hear about it ahead of time, you know, my whole thing is, hey, we're just going to unplug from the grid from the day, no internet, whatever. We're just kind of make a fun project out of it, just to kind of go, you know, we're going to go back to the old times for 24 hours just to make sure. And if nothing happens, great. The only thing we lost was we didn't have, you know, Fortnite for, you know, the day, which I don't care about, but, you know, our spouses,
our wives do.
Our spouses do. So if you hear screaming in the background during this podcast, it's our spouses playing Fortnite together, getting killed by 15-year-old kids. Just saying. So, in any case, but you know, with all this stuff going on, you know, we're not even in solar maximum yet. This just shot off. The sunspot group that is responsible for shooting that thing off will be Earth facing in the coming days. I did ask the question or researched, hey, is it possible that the same sunspot group can shoot off, you know, a big one again? And the answer to that was yes. There is a possibility that that same sunspot group can shoot off another super flare. The odds are diminished, but there's always that chance. Obviously, Ben couldn't give me a number. He was doing a live stream when I asked the question. Obviously, he wasn't going to give me a percentage value or anything like that. But there is a chance that, you know, that same sunspot group can shoot off another one towards us of equal magnitude if need be. The likelihood of it, I don't know. I don't think I'm too concerned about it. But again, we're watching it. We're keeping an eye on it. And we'll kind of see where it goes from there. But, you know, the big thing that really got me with this one was looking at even how I prepare, you know, my food stores, my water stores, you know, stuff like that. You know, I just like, I'm not. And it even got into an even deeper thought experiment, which is dangerous. Thought experiments can be dangerous, but when you start thinking about like the what ifs and the scenarios, you know, because it creates anxiety and it creates all this other stuff. So, but you have this thought experiment of, you know, if I firmly believe at my core that this is going to happen in the next 10 years, right? Or within 10 years, technology will cease to exist, right? If I firmly in my soul believe that, based on the evidence that has been presented to me, the scientific evidence that's presented to me, I am convinced that in 10 years, like, this is going to happen in the next 10 years. I hope I'm wrong, but I believe it will happen in the next 10 years. What am I doing? Not just from a preparedness standpoint, but from a life standpoint. Like, this gets into a whole nother like rabbit trail of thoughts that can go on in people's heads. Like, you know, people can get into like, well, what's the point of going on? Or what's the point of like doing anything? Like, you can get into that, and I would encourage you not to go down that rabbit trail. But for me, it's like, okay, what am I doing from a preparedness standpoint? What am I doing from an asset management standpoint? Like, by assets, I mean, you know, house, commodities, gold, silver, stuff like that. What am I doing? Just the different things that are day-to-day life that you don't really think about. Like, and because if you think about it, like, if this all goes to hell in a handbasket, right? Like the dollar cash, that's going to be worthless. Like, I don't care if I got 30 grand in the bank. Like, if this happens, that 30 grand means nothing. Like, I'm going to go to your house and go, hey, I'll give you 10 grand for 5 gallons of water. You're going to look at me and go, that ain't worth jack, bro. Like, go bring me something worth it. Go bring me some bullets. Go bring me some silver. Like,
some chicken.
Go give me some chicken, right? So, you know, you start thinking about what you do day to day, the things that you value. You know, I'm a big tech guy. I'm a geek. You know, I like microphones and lights and back. Like, I'm like that. But like right now, like the money I spend on like my tech, I can go get another rifle, or I could go buy some more bullets,
get some gold, or
I can go get some gold, or I can go get some silver, things that won't lose value because gold and silver have been a commodity, have been real money since like the dawn of time.
For thousands of years.
Yeah. Thousands of years. Like, there's never been a society that says gold and silver ain't worth nothing. Like currencies start by being backed by gold and silver, and then they go to what we have now, which is a debt-based currency that is just paper, and it all rides on confidence. Like our economy completely rides on confidence. If people lose confidence in the economy, it's going to all come crashing down, which is why they're very careful on how they broadcast certain like tragedies,
Banks
certain
going under.
disasters, banks going under. Like, yeah, we hear like with the war in Ukraine, all the rhetoric about nuclear war, but I'm sure there's so much else going on in the background that is not being reported to
hands
us.
down.
That if it was reported to us, people would be freaking out. And like they're very careful about that because they know what drives. I mean, what like the U.S. like what gives us our power? It's our dollar. That's it. Our dollar, it gives us our
Well, the
power.
dollar that, yeah, we have military power, that kind of stuff, but it's dwindling. It's, you've got other people that are building up their military power as well. But it is the US dollar that kind of backs. It's the primary currency that everybody uses. But that's why there's
Yeah.
discussions going on from China and from Russia to have their own currency as being the, I mean, you had brought up a topic earlier about the rise and fall of empires. And I'm going to find the Twitter post that I saw. It was a wonderful little like pie chart diagram where it shows like the from like the 1800s, and every year it shows like how the transition of currency has transitioned between different countries and power and this and that. But did a really great job calling out the fact that that rise and fall happens naturally.
Yeah, it does. I'm actually going to share. I'm going to share the link to the video in the chat, both on YouTube and Facebook, and it's going to be on the Preppin Patriots Facebook page and the YouTube chat. This video is from Ray Dalio. He is a really cool guy. He did a whole video on the principles for dealing with the changing world order, which is rise and fall of empires. Basically, not going to spoil it, but I think it's 200 years, like you have a rise and fall of empires. Right now, the U.S. is on top, and based on his research of looking at history and all of the empires back from like Egyptian times, way back when, like there's a cycle, and it's repetitive and it's accurate and it never changes. Every 200 some odd years, the rising power starts to fall, and he goes in and explains why it falls. He explains, what the signs are of it falling. And if you go watch it and you look at what's happening today, you're like, oh crap, the U.S. is on the downward of being the rising empire. And another nation, we all know it's probably China, is on the uprising to replace that dominant world power. And the Carrington event of the changing of powers typically happens with a war, and you've been hearing a lot of rhetoric about war with China. And then there's 5 different types of wars you can have. There's the financial war, there's the technological war, there's obviously the military war, there's the social war, and there's one other one that I'm missing. But we're into the technological war right now. We're in the financial war.
And social for sure.
We're in the social for sure. I mean, the fourth one, I can't remember the fourth one, but the last one would be the military war that comes last. But that's pretty much the Carrington level event, or the crossroads of when the world powers change and the new power rises, because it all ties to the currency and the devaluation of currency and it's super good. So if you guys watch that video and then you listen to or you think about what's going on in the world today, it's spot on. It's spot on about what's going on. So I think I mentioned this last podcast too. Don't try and figure everything out. Like, we focus on mainly the sun and what's going on, but lately, with the banking, the banks collapsing, Cam and I have been really looking at because we don't really research this or really follow it, financial collapse, financial Armageddon. What happens if the dollar crashes? I don't research that stuff. I don't prep for that stuff. I don't do anything. I
Very
love
true,
this.
Bob.
very, 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 very true. Very, very true.
But go ahead.
Yeah, we don't research that stuff, but I tell you, I'm going to start paying attention a little bit more. My point was being the human brain isn't built to try to know everything that's going on in the world. It's not built to understand and have anxiety about solar flares or financial collapse or nuclear Armageddon or any of these other disasters that could potentially happen. Like, we're not designed, our brains aren't designed to comprehend all of that.
Or
and if you
absorb it.
try, or absorb it. And I can tell you, if I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable, like because I've tried to do that, I've tried to absorb all this stuff for the sake of like informing you guys what's going on, for the sake of the podcast. Like, I've had huge anxiety issues the last month or so, just trying to absorb it all. And the answer to that, at least for me, isn't to just not do it. Like, oh, I'm just going to stop because it's important information. I need to learn how to compartmentalize everything and
Process
compartmentalize
it,
what I'm doing and process it in a timely manner to where my brain can process it in a very logical way, so that anxiety and that fear and that, occasional depression doesn't take over my life. So word of warning to people who are into this and are getting interested or want to know more or getting aware, like try not to dive into and research every bad thing that's going on in the world, because you'll just get depressed and you'll get anxious and you'll make stupid decisions. You'll start spending money you don't need to spend on stupid things that you go to YouTube and some prepping channel says, oh, go buy all this 511 gear. It's like, no. Don't do that.
You need this folding knife. You need it.
You have to have this $400 folding knife. It will last your grandkids will die before this thing, dulls out. It's like, no, that's not. There is no knife on the planet that stays sharp forever. That's just the nature of metal. Like, come on, people. It's all marketing, right? You have to sharpen your knives. So yeah, don't go get all ingrained and sucked in like I did early on, and it just leads to bad things. So
And we say this almost every podcast, probably every other podcast.
Yeah.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, we are bringing a lot of information to our podcast. Most people don't know about the solar activity that's going on. Most people don't know about the financial aspect and the crash of the dollar. Most people don't know of food shortages and that kind of stuff unless they hear it on TV, unless they see it on Facebook, unless they see it on TikTok. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like I can't handle this right now, please take a break. Come back and listen later. Okay, we're always going to be bringing up more content. There's always something going on. There's always something to talk about. But don't put yourself in like a depression state or a
you're living in fear.
I don't know, just
like all the time.
Yeah, living
like,
in fear. No,
fearful.
yeah, exactly. So don't live in fear. Okay, be prepared, not scared. There's a lot of great phrases out there. At some point in time, we'll get a website up and we'll have a dedicated page to just the best phrases I've heard. Like, I mean, my favorite one, and of course I'm going to butcher it right now because I'm on the spot, but it's something by Bear Independent that was something like, something about like collapse is here. So, don't prep for collapse because collapse is here or something like that. So just start going now. But I'll find the exact phrase. It was just the way he said it was perfect. It like literally laid out everything that we always think about or talk about. So I'll get that. But yeah, so another point to JT's point, is when it comes to finances. That is something over the last 3 days that I've been focusing more and more on, because if a solar flare goes out or a coronal mass ejection, all my money's in the bank today. So, people always talk about diversifying your accounts. Make sure you have money in stocks, make sure you have equity, make sure you have this, make sure you have that. Well, if you think about it, almost all of that is digital in some sort of way. Your stocks are all digital, your bank accounts all digital, your cash, your cash is going to be useless if there is no system to apply it towards. So that's where more and more people keep on talking about God's money. You got gold, you've got silver, you've got gemstones, you've got artwork, you've got commodities, physical items that you can hold on to that you're going to be able to barter with.
Physical assets that are not, they're not bad ideas to have even in good times, like gold, silver, land, just something that is physical. That those aren't bad investments. You know, the best real estate investors are like, yeah, diversify stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, gold, silver, land. You know, buy some of this and that, things that you can physically hold to hedge against, like, if anything really bad happens, at least all your eggs aren't all in one basket. I would even go further to say my eggs aren't all in the digital basket either. You know, like I said the other day, I started thinking about some of this, you know, what happens when the dollar is useless and all my money's in the bank and in 401ks and all that. And like I used to purchase silver back in the day when I had no money and I shouldn't have been buying silver. But I'm starting to buy silver again. Like, okay, like let's start bringing our silver stockpile up, because even if a financial collapse happens, let's just say a solar flare doesn't happen, but let's just say there's run on banks and this, you know, now third bank that just got rescued, because yes, a third bank just got rescued, not by the government, but by other banks. Other banks pulled together and rescued this Credit Suisse bank. But if confidence get lost in the market and things go on a downturn and we do another 2008 where things just lose their value, at least like when that happens, silver, gold, all that always goes up, right? So that's always going to be on the upward trend. At least I can hedge a little bit and say, hey, even though my 401k lost 3/4 of its value, like when things are at rock bottom, I might have enough silver to be able to like make an investment in land or make a, you know, to maybe come out ahead of this, but I don't have that if my money's not worth anything. So take technological Armageddon out of the picture and look at, you know, just from a financial standpoint, because I mean, financial collapses have happened. There's a cycle of financial collapses. It's not anything new. The last one
never happened in our lifetime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like, I mean, okay. Yes.
From a Great Depression
smaller
standpoint.
scale.
Yeah, from a Great Depression standpoint. We haven't had a Great Depression in our lifetimes. Most of those people are either gone or going to be gone because they're 90 years old.
We've had 3 depressions total.
29.
Well, what do you call 2008? It wasn't. I mean, it's a recession.
That wasn't a depression. That was.
I know it's not a depression, but it was pretty much to that point where it's. Okay, we'll say recession. There's been 3 recessions then in the last 70 years. I can't remember when all 3 of those were. 2008 was one of them, but yes, one Great Depression.
Recessions are annoying because it's like, oh, my eggs cost $4 a carton now instead of, you know, $1.20, and gas is higher and things are higher, but my wages aren't meeting the higher inflation costs, and we're kind of in this whole thing. I don't want to get on too much of the financial stuff. Because it's like we've been living on such an inflated bubble of debt in this country. Like you mentioned in the last podcast, we're like $31 trillion in debt right now. It's like we can be $31 trillion in debt because we hold the world's reserve currency. So we can just say, hey, let's just raise the debt ceiling and keep raising. But the day that the dollar gets dethroned is the day that your maybe, you know, $100,000 401k is maybe worth $100. You know, it's just the way it is. And there's plenty of content out there and people that are way smarter than me that explain stuff like this, that aren't like conspiracy theorists and like the people who like are crazy.
That stuff is way over my head. And it's difficult from a prepping mindset on which way to go, which way to think, which way to whatever, because you'll continually hear from a financial advisor like, hey, we have these ups and downs. That happens. Keep your money where it's at. You know, it'll grow back up, that kind of stuff. But you get other people's mindsets are like, I mean, it really depends on the type of scenario that you're running into, what other events play into it. So we don't have to talk about finances and stuff on here, but that's the only reason why I brought up financial aspect was just from if a solar kill shot or something like that happened, you know, if we hadn't missed this big giant Carrington event from hitting us, what would you do from a money perspective? You know, when's the last time you bartered? I mean, you probably bartered recently, but I'm saying people that we're talking to on the podcast or on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or whatever that are watching right now. When's the last time you actually went to somebody and bartered besides, you know, a car dealership because you needed to get a car anyways and you may not be able to talk the best deal. That's actually going to be... Go ahead.
Last time I bartered was when we were in Cancun at the shop in town. and I bought that ridiculously large Mexican hat, and it ended up
Yeah.
being like $60 US. And I was like, let's work on this, buddy. I'll do 40. He's like, nope. He goes, you can go to the next shop. And I'm like, crap, I really want this hat. So I bought it for $60.
Oh my gosh,
horrible
that's
at
not
it. I'm
bartering.
horrible.
See,
That's not bartering.
exactly.
I tried.
So that is exactly my point, and I think that that was brought up. I think it was I think it was PBN that brought that up. Try bartering. Just practice it, because you never know when you'll need to use it, kind of thing. I thought about that for my kids today. Like, man, yeah, I really should. As we're trying to teach our kids more life skills and more doing, how to start up your own business and how to do this and how to do that. Bartering is a huge one. Being able to negotiate and just have a conversation or make somebody feel like, ooh, okay, maybe I will give you that for this. Do something basic like, hey, I got a candy bar. What are you going to give me for that? So that's definitely something I'm going to be doing with both my boys here in the coming days. It is on my list, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I'm really good at bartering with my daughter. She's like, "Oh, Daddy, can I get $10 worth of what's it, Genshin Impact coins?" I'm like, "Are you gonna do your chores?" She's like,
What?
"Oh, I'll do
What
the,
is
I'll
it?
do the-" You ever Genshin Impact? You don't know Genshin Impact?
I don't even know what this is. Hold on a second.
Oh my gosh!
Is
Okay.
it is it a game or?
Yeah, it's a game on. It's a game. It's an iOS game. It's also on PC.
Oh, okay.
As well. You can do it on PC and Mac. I think it's on all platforms. But it's like what the kids are playing now. Like if they're not playing Roblox, they're playing Genshin. They're playing Genshin Impacts. Think of it as like a Final Fantasy, a Final Fantasy story based. Really addicting. I was playing it for a while there. I had to stop because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 6 hours later. I need to be actually productive. So, but there's coins.
It's like Final Fantasy, yeah.
Yeah. It looks like a Final Fantasy. It's really well done, really well written. All of the stuff is they're constantly making updates. Really, really good game. I would just warn you, do not introduce it to your kids because they will just get addicted. And it's, I don't need my kid addicted to any.
I already have Fortnite as an addiction for these kids. We'll
and now
stick
your
to
wife.
one.
And now your wife.
And now
is
my
addicted
wife.
To
Yeah,
Fortnite,
I don't know if
so-
I actually said this on the podcast at all. I don't think I did, but I actually won a PlayStation 5 recently. So there was, we went to a birthday party at a bowling alley. Had one of those in the arcade. They had one of those rope cutting machines where tiny little blade. You hold the button down, the blade comes out, and you have to stop it just in time for it to then cut the string. It took me 4 tries. It was $3 a play. So $12 later, I got a almost $600 PS5.
Yeah, that's
Great
crazy.
deal.
Because
Great
those
deal.
games are designed to take your money.
Yeah.
Like they are like if you watched Mark Rober, he's a YouTuber, big YouTuber. He's an engineer. He was a NASA engineer and all that
Yeah.
stuff. He actually did a video on arcade games and like if you're going to go to arcade, you're going to win tickets. Here's the best ones to do. Here's the best ones to play. Here's the ones you want to avoid because literally in their program, and he pulled it all up, like they're designed to take your money. Like they can give you a 0 chance to actually win. And that was one of them is that rope cutting game that he said. So when you said you won it on the rope cutting game, I'm like, are you freaking serious? You must be the luckiest. Yeah. And
So
the owner of that
rope cutting game?
Son of a...
Yeah, I'm sure they're ticked. But the 2 main games that I'm best at are rope cutting and the claw machines. My all-time favorite games to play. And people have to understand when they play the game, don't look straight on at the knife. You actually want to go at an angle to see where it's landing when you go to cut the string or when you're going to use the claw to pick up an item. So that's a little tip for all of you. But so yeah, my wife's been on there. I bought the new Harry Potter game. My kids are obsessed with that and Fortnite and all the other stuff. So it ended up being a very expensive day though, because I ended up having to get each one of their own PlayStation controllers because I was not going to have them break my unit again like they did for my my Switch.
Right.
But man, controllers like $75 a piece these days.
Yeah, it
stupid
is.
Expensive.
Yeah.
So
It's
Bob, probably if your wife is playing with JT's wife, then yep, they're all playing together.
Oh, did Amanda get? Did she get his wife on? And so are all the wives playing Fortnite right now?
They're probably all playing Fortnite.
They're probably all playing.
Add some wine into the mix.
Jeez
My wife will be
Louise.
set.
Oh my gosh. So that's what we have to look forward to on stream nights, is potentially screaming wives screaming at the 15-year-old kids that are just murdering them. But
on me.
on me.
Yes.
No. Yeah, you'll hear my wife occasionally scream, "What?" So, oh gosh. In any case, well,
That's awesome.
It's fine. We've digressed from the main topic. I think we've hit the. I think we hit the main topic pretty well. If we haven't scared the crap out of people already, that wasn't our intention. But keep an eye out, and of course, we'll keep everybody updated when we stream and stuff like that. So, we're at. Wow, I didn't think this was going to be a normal time stream. I thought this was going to be short and sweet, but it ended up being a full hour. So,
well, good. Well, you've already posted out the content out there, right? For
I posted Ray Dalios's link for that video. What other video do we need to post?
Where did you post that?
I posted that on the YouTube chat and the Facebook group chat.
Okay, we'll put the links in Discord as well if anybody wants to join on there. I think JT's been posting some stuff on there. I need to start posting more stuff on there, especially since I've got a lot of.
Do you want to put the Discord link in? If you're not in Restream, you can just send it in the interview chat, and then I can post it in there.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then I'll just post it in there. It works better because Facebook, it'll show up in the comments, and then YouTube, it'll show up in the chats and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And eventually, we'll just have this stuff posted in the descriptions of all the streams anyway. That way. Oh,
and I should probably also post the link tree or whatever.
Linktree, yeah, Linktree as we get on there. So. In any case, so while Cam's doing that, we're going to just wrap this up because there's not a whole lot more to say about what just happened.
Yeah, so keep an eye out there. Again, we'll continue to give you guys more information on all the solar stuff, but actually, I would recommend going out there and just looking up solar activity, what it does, how it can affect you, that kind of stuff. We don't really have a bunch of those details on us and available right now, but we brought up some great tips throughout the podcast today on just like what to do for disconnecting cables, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of tips out there on what to do for these kind of scenarios. So
yeah, lots of tips. If anybody has questions or concerns, or you just think we're just crazy nuts, feel free to let us know. Trust me, I got thick skin. I can take it. So leave comments, leave whatever. If you're on YouTube, we're just getting going, the YouTube channel and all that. So obviously we don't have thousands of people watching the live stream, but if you hit the like button and maybe the share, I don't know, what do YouTubers say in their videos? Hey, smash that like button and comment and share out.
Share, like, and subscribe.
Share, like, and subscribe on YouTube, and then on Facebook, you do whatever Facebook does. And then we're going to get out on Instagram here as far as the live stream goes. We'll live stream on Instagram. We're live streaming on Twitter as well. That's new for me. I don't even have a Twitter account, but whatever. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I just lurk in the background and just look at people's threads.
I literally just lurk in the back. I don't post on Twitter or anything like that. But in any case, guys, thanks for sticking around with us. I think we're going to do this again. We decided Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So Tuesdays, every Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to start 7:30, 8 o'clock Eastern, Central.
Yeah.
Central time. So 7:30, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern, and then you do the math on all the other time zones. So in any case, guys, thanks for sticking with us. We will see you guys on Tuesday.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Preppin Patriots podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a 5-star review. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can do so at contact@preppinpatriots.stream. And finally, this episode was sponsored by nobody.